Hi, today we're going to learn about Zod. Zod is a TypeScript first schema validation with static type inference. What does that mean? Well, TypeScript first means that the tool is designed to work best with TypeScript. Schema validation means it checks if your data matches a specific structure. Static type inference means that it automatically figures out the types in our code without having to write them manually. Now, let's have a look at today's lesson then. And we're going to look at these 2, 4, 6 different topics. Why do we validate it? We look at some basics for Zod. We look at how to use Express and Zod, a real-world example, and in the end, advanced validation, real-world example, and recap and challenge. Now, why would we validate? And I think that made kind of sense already, right? For security. Imagine we are at an airport without security. It would be another chaos. Okay? Imagine we get to the plane, we have no ID, no passport, no tickets. We might even have sharp objects with us. Now, basically, in code, that's what happens if we accept an API with any data without validating. That's no good. Imagine the amount of harm it can cause. So, we'll learn Zod. Zod will be our API's security guard. It will check our data before we use the code, before our code uses it. We will avoid crashes, hackers, and garbage data. I'm sure you've already been there, where you've been coding and all of a sudden your code crashes. For example, let me show you in Visual Studio Code. So let's say we have a user. And let's say it's me, okay? So name, Michiel, and age 46. There. Then we want to console log this. There. So let's try this out. There. So this all works, but what if I say I want just the age? Okay, all good. So, all good, just 46. And there's no TypeScript involved, so I can say to uppercase. There. And let's run it now. And I have a crash. Okay? Because this here to uppercase doesn't work on number. It works on name. See? But it doesn't work on number. So my code would crash. No good. But we can also have, beside the crash, a security risk. For example, there's some kind of SQL injection or data that is not written the right way. And of course it leads to bad user experience. Okay? If our APIs return mysterious errors like cannot read property name of undefined, we don't want to see that. So basically Zod will help us to catch the bad data early. It will help us to give clear error messages if there is an error. And it works super well with TypeScript. Now, how do we use Zod? Let me get rid of this first. There. To use Zod, we need to install it. And you can see here that if we want to install it, we can do Node Package Manager, install Zod. So let's do that. I'm going to copy this. There. and we don't want it as a def dependency. We want it in our project here. So there. And it's installed. We can see in our dependency there's Zod. All right. Now that we've installed Zod, we can import it. So we say import Z from Zod. So what we first do is we're going to define a schema for a username. Define a schema for a username. So we say const, and then we'll just say username schema equals, and we want just a name, so we can say Z from Zod dot, and now it's already going to help us out here. There's lots of options here, but we're going to go for a string, because that's what it's going to be. And the nice thing now with Zod as well is that it will give us more options. So we can say we want the name to be a minimum of 3 letters, and we want to have a maximum maybe of 10 letters. Then we can test the valid data. And what do we do now? We can say const, and we can say validated username equals, and now we can say username schema dot, and here we can choose save parse, and I'm going to say Michiel, and then 1, 2, 3. There. And we can console log now this, because this has been validated. There. Let's try it out. npx ts node server.ts, and you see we have been successful. And of course I can actually just do nodemon run dev the whole time. I mean npm run dev. There. Then let's try to test invalid data, and what I'm going to do now is I'm going to do a try catch here, because if it fails, I want to do something else. So first of all, I will just going to copy this, but I want to fail, so that means that I can have, if I only have 2 characters, there, it should fail. And then if I'm successful, I could console log it. Otherwise, what I want to do is I want to console the error, and I'm going to put in the error. So now, because I'm running nodemon, you can already see it here, is that the first one is correct, this one, it's successful, and the second one is a false, and I'm getting the error here. And what it's saying here is that my username is too small. Okay, here the message is too small, expected string to have at least 3 characters. What if I do too many? Because I said up to 10, so I say Michiel is already 7, 1, 2, 3, 4. This is also too many. What happens then? So I still see I'm going to get an error, and now you see it's too big. Okay. And actually, because I'm using safe parse, because I could also just say parse, but because I'm using safe parse here, in these, I don't even need to use the try catch, so I can make it simpler. So I can keep this here, and what I can do then here is I can say if, and if the validated username is not a success, right, because this means the opposite, then I can console the error, and then if I do error here like this, oh, I have this left here, there, and then I need to say the validated username.error in there. I'm just going to comment that out. Otherwise, I can console log the validated username dot, and then it needs to be the data. Okay, so let's try that. I'm just gonna clean this up for a second. Clear. And I'm getting an error, and it's because it's still too big. So let's clean that out here. I can just say 1 and 2. There. Clear. I'm gonna do it once more. There. And now it's all good, see? I'm gonna get it back. So I don't need all of that. I can just keep it like this, nice and clean. So what's happening here? We have some user data here. So we can, let's see if we can make it a bit clear. I'm not sure I'm totally clear. So I can say const, and I will say user equals, and for now it's Michiel12. Yeah? So I could actually just say user in here. Maybe it's easier that way. Then before, what we did is we would say this is of type string. And now we don't need to do that here, because we're setting up a username schema, or I can say user schema. Let me just change it there too, user schema. And what we do is we import Zod here, and we say that this is a string with a minimum of 3 characters and a maximum of 10. And then what I do here is I create a new variable here, and what I do is I take in the schema and I safe parse my variable in there. So that means that this one here, that this variable now is being validated by my schema. If it passes it, so if it doesn't pass, it's gonna throw me an error. Otherwise, it's gonna give me the validated username, and then I always need to take the data. Okay, I need to go in. Let's see what happens if I don't do that. Then I get this here, because I'm getting an object back, success and data. So I could also just say I want the success back. And then I just get the true, I get the boolean back. But I want the data. Okay, let's go from here. So instead of just a user name here, like the name, what I can do is turn this into an object. So I can say name is that and age is 46. There. Now it's crashing because I'm not putting in the right right thing in here. Yeah, this is not correct. Unless I take the name, then it all works again. Yeah. So I need to change this user schema now as well. So you can see this is an object. So I need to make sure that, I'm just going to mark that out, that this is an object as well. And now I'm going to say, what does the object then look like? So I have a name, and the name is of like this. And then I can continue there with a minimum of 3 and the maximum of 10. And then I also have the age, and that is a of type number. And even there I can say I want a minimum age maybe. So I can say a minimum age of 18, and I can then say, actually in here, if I do a comma here, I can have a message in here. Message. You must be at least 18 years old. And I can also do a max age of maybe 100. And here I can have as a message perhaps, just going to copy this in. You must be at, instead of least I can do most 100 years old. There. So if we look at it now, and I don't need this anymore, there. So let's now put in the whole user there, and we can see that this is allowed. What if I am 101? There. Then I'm getting a message, you must be at most 100 years old. Now we can even have we can make this optional, where we then say optional, and in that case we can default it, and then we can say 18. So let's see what happens then. We just have this in there, and you can see it has defaulted down to 18. So if you don't enter it, it's optional, then it defaults to 18. You can say I can default it to 28, and then it sets it to 28. But if I enter the age, it takes on the age. So the nice thing here is that compared to TypeScript, Zod is a runtime validation, and TypeScript actually only does it when you compile it. It gives very clear error messages if the data is not valid, and it works with APIs, forms, data, etc. So let's continue. And let's have a look at Express then. So I have already installed Express. You can see it's here. So let's import Express from Express. And then let's create the instance app.use. Sorry, that's not it. Const app equals Express. There. And now we can say app.use, and we're going to do express.json. There. I'm just going to stop my server for a second. There. And let's see, I'm just going to go down here. Let's say we want to post something. So we do app.post, and we want to go to the route users, and then we have the arrow function, and we enter request and response, and we're going to say const new user equals request.body. And then we can do like this, response dot, we can give a status of 201 created, and we can return a JSON response, and in there we can say user new user. Okay, you see there is no errors anywhere. But if we look at this, this is of an type any, and that is risky. So we do not want that. What do? Is we'll use Zod. Okay. Before we do that, let's also create a port. So const port equals 3000, and app.listen, and then we say ports, and we're going to say server is running on boards. There. Oh, sorry. That's it. Console.log. There. And also up here, this needs to be a method there. Okay. Now this all works, right? Even though it says any. If I try it in here, users, and I type this in, you can see it's giving me a 201 created. Oh, sorry, now I've stopped the server. Let me just npm run dev. Nope, not that one. This one. Okay, all good. But it's risky, so we don't want that. Now let's go back and fix that with Zod. So we can use actually some of this here. We have the user schema. We have a name. Okay, we can keep that. We have an age. Sure, we can keep that. And maybe we also want the email. So we can do email. And then we do z dot, and now we can say the email is a string, But we also know that it is of type, let's see where that is, email. Okay. And we can say that this is optional. And actually I can just write it like this, there. Now when we look at Zod's defining schemas for emails, we can actually see here that to validate email addresses we can use Zod.email with the brackets, and by default Zod uses a comparatively strict email regex designed to validate normal email addresses containing common characters. It is roughly equivalent to the rules enforced by Gmail. To learn more about this regex, refer to this post and you can have a look more. You can also customize the email validation behavior, and you can pass a custom regular expression to the pattern param. So you can change it. So then you have to say, okay, we want to change the pattern, and then you change what you want to change in there. But we'll just keep it like this for now. So now that we have that in place, we're going to look at the post and we need to update this. So we can say that we want the user's schema dot, and then we use the save bars again. And what do is we throw the request.body in there. And then we could call this validated new user, just to be clear. And we copy that in there. Now this comes back if it's successful, right? But what if it's not successful? So we can basically copy this again here, copy this in there. So if the validated new user is no success, then we can throw the error. Otherwise, we can respond with what we want. So let's try this out. Let's just take this object here, and we're gonna open up Insomnia. Oh, we have it already. Let's throw it in. And it has been successful. And that is because the email was optional. Let's take away that optional part for a second. Not that one, this one here. I don't want this to be optional. There. I want to see what happens now. Insomnia, send. And let's see what's happening here. And you can see here that it is complaining about the email. Okay, it's expecting a string, but it's received undefined. So let's just enter the email. And then I have my work mail. And now you can see we are successful. Okay. But we are not successful if we take out the @ sign, for example, and it keeps on spinning and it's not doing what we want. So let's fix that for a second. And we need to go back to Visual Studio Code, and we need to change this line here. So what we want to do is we want to return something to the user. So we're going to say return. We're going to return a response, and we want the status of, and then we can have a look add our HTTP response codes, and we can see that we want a 400 bad request back. So we're going to send a 400 back. So 400 in there. And then we want to give the user some information in the form of JSON. So we want to inform them that there is an error. So we can say invalid user data, because that is what it's about. And we want to give the user some details here. So we can go and get some data here. So we can say validated new user dot, and then we're going to return the error there. So let's go back to Insomnia, and when I click this send now, you see it's a 400 and I'm getting invalid user data, and then I have it's a Zod error, that's the type of the error, and then this is the message here, which is a little bit unclear, but it's an invalid email address. There we go. Now this schema that I have defined here is kind of clean, right? It's a name, which is a string with some restrictions, and the age is a number with some restrictions, and the email is an email. But it can get messier, of course. So let's say we have a restaurant schema, So we start the same, like this, and then we can have maybe still a name, right? We can have the menu, and of course the menu will get a little bit messier. So we would say z dot, and the menu will be an object, not a project, an object. And the items in the object also need to be validated. So I can say we have maybe appetizers, and the appetizers are an array, like so, and the array will then contain strings. We could have mains, and that might be an array as well, and here we might have just strings, but some more restrictions. So we can say we want at least, you need to choose at least one dish, and then otherwise we're going to say at least one main dish is required, and this could be like an online purchase, right? Then we could have opening hours, and then we would choose a record instead, and we can say, okay, this is going to be a string. So I want something, let me just show you behind here, and then I'll come. For example, Monday, and then an array with 9, or I say klokka 9, and klokka 10, like that. So I could say these are strings, see? These are strings. This will be a string as well. Okay, so this is the string here, and followed by, so this is one record, yeah, followed by the array, And those are of type strings again. Okay. And this one is in the wrong place. It should be here behind. There. So we have a record, and then we have a string, and then we have an array with strings. I can give you another example, maybe with email addresses. So we can say const, and then we can say email schema equals z.object. It always starts the same there. And we can say email, and then we want the email to be of type string. No, we said email, like that. And this time, because sometimes people fill it out like this. Since garden, but we want it to be like this. So we want it to be all lowercase. Okay, we don't want this, we want the bottom one. So what we can say here then is we can transform this actually we can do it straight. If you see here, we can straight do it to lowercase there. So now when they enter something and it's going to be all uppercase, it's all going to come out as lowercase. The last example is a real-world example I want to show you, and that is from a website here called a random user generator. So every time it generates a new random user, and it also works with an API which you don't need a key for, and it gives results, the gender, name, title first, last, location, etc. So I want to pull data from here, but I also want to validate it because I don't have control over what kind of data comes out from here. So I'm going to put this to the side here first. And in here, I am going to say const random user schema. User maybe response, user response schema, something like that, equals, and then z.object, and in here I'm going to define this now. So I'm going to pull over the, let's see here if I can pull it over so we can see what we're doing there. And let's see if I can move this smaller here, like that. Great. So I am first going to get back results, and that is, if you look here, an array. See? So I'm going to say z.array there, but in the array it's going to have an object, as you can see here. So first an array, and then in there an object. Okay, so the object, and in the object we're going to take the name. So we're going to say name, And the name, if you look at it, it has an object again. So z.object there, and in there we want the first name and the last name. So first, and that is a type string, z.string, and the last, which is also a string. Then we have the first name, last name, then I don't need the location, the time. I'm going to take the email. Email. And the email, when we look, is a string. And actually, remember, I keep doing this wrong. It's actually an email there. So I just want the first name, last name, and email for now. Okay. And what I then want to do is I'm going to say app.get, and I'm going to say I'm going to take a random user for now, and then we do the arrow function. Then we're going to say const response equals, and then we're going to fetch from, and I need to get this here, all of it, from there. Now this might take a while, so remember we have the async await. There it comes back finally, there. And then we say const data equals, and then response.json. And even this can take a while, so we'll await that as well. There. Now we're going to continue with what we have done. So we can say, we look up here, how we did it here. Here, const validated username. We can say const validated random user equals, and then we're going to take in the schema like so, and then we do the save parse, that one, and we're going to enter in there the data. This goes in there like so. Now we need to continue with this. We need to continue with the validated random user. Then we can say if, and we say if the validated random user is not successful, then we can return, and we'll send a status of, let's have a look. We can send a 500 internal server error, indicates that the server encounters an unexpected condition that prevented it from fulfilling the request. The error is a general catch-all response to server issues. So let's take that one. There. So 500. And just like here at the bottom, where did I write it here? Some JSON. So dot JSON. And we're going to say error. And we can write down maybe invalid data from random user API, and we can send some details maybe, where we can say it's the that one dot error there. Okay, but what if we have a success? What if we get some data back? And why is this marked here? It's like autocomplete, I guess, there. Why is it complaining here? I did not put request and response in there. Okay, so what if we get what if we get a response back? Great, then let's use that. Let's play with just the first one. So we can say const random user equals, and remember we have to use this one here, dot data dot, and we're gonna work with results, and then we take the first person, and what am I doing now is that this here should go in there. So then I also want everything in here actually to be in a try catch. So this part here, so am I taking everything there? Yeah. In there. And even this. So then I want to response with some, send a response with some JSON. And what do I want to do is I'm going to take the name, which is going to be what do I have? Do you remember? We are having the random user dot name dot first and random user dot name dot last, and also the email, and that is going to be the random user dot email, and also the, no, that's all we did there. And then we have a catch. So if we have a catch, we can respond with the status of 500, and we'll send some JSON back. I'm going to say error failed to fetch random user. There. Now let's try this out. So we need to go to localhost 3000// random user. Let me just copy that. Let's create a new request here. Actually, it doesn't matter, I've been messy here, so I'll take this one away, delete, and I'll rename this one here to say fetch a random user, and then here we're going to say localhost 3000 there, and we can connect server. I think we haven't started the server, so npm run dev You can see now I have first name, last name, and email address. Great. So this was a little video on how to start working with Zod. I hope you have understood most of it. Have a look, try again. Try with your own code, try to break it, try to fix it, look at the documentation, and good luck with your homework, and I'll see you in the next lesson.